Hello and welcome to our 20th annual exhibit of hydrogen and fuel cells, and we've added batteries to the mix, which is good because that's what we're going to be talking about right now. Please sit down and have a drink. The drinks are on the house. The ladies will be serving us whatever your heart desires. Next on the stage is a fascinating development. I'll be talking to Professor Dr. Michael Stelter, who's the Deputy Institute Director at Fraunhofer-Institut for Ceramic Technology and Systems, and we'll be talking about a new, well, no longer secret development, cerenergy batteries. Please welcome with me Dr. Michael Stelter. So, thank you. Before we get into cerenergy and ceramics, we've been on the stage before and we've talked about solid oxide fuel cells. So is there a natural progression from your involvement in solid oxide fuel cells to what you want to talk about today?
Oh yes, pretty much so. If you look at our type of battery, this is a high temperature electrochemical system based on functional ceramics, based on solid state ionic conductors, and you have this in a solid oxide fuel cell. We do this for 20 years. So we thought might be a good idea to try this with batteries as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, ceramic batteries, did you invent the wheel here, or have they been around in some form or other for quite some time, the ceramic batteries themselves? Was this your own personal development, or have they been part of the battery options available for quite some time?
So we did not reinvent the wheel, we rediscovered the wheel a bit. So this battery is known to some of you maybe as the Zebra battery or the sodium sulfur battery. And this is a battery which has also an industrial tradition in Germany. So we thought it's worth to look at these batteries from today's perspective. Originally these batteries have been developed as a traction battery for electric cars. And we thought it might be wise to have a look at them as an energy storage device for stationary applications, and that's what we did.
Now, my understanding at the current moment is that, yes, there have been ceramic batteries, but they're relatively difficult sometimes to get them the perfect mix. You've got a new approach to putting them together, to assembling them. What is your core technology there that makes them of more interest now than, let's say, 5 or 10 years ago?
Yep. So our main approach to this battery is technological. With ceramic technologies, we try to make these batteries very low cost. In general, these batteries have pretty low cost ingredients. They do not contain any noble metals, any strategic metals. The version we develop contains only rock salt, nickel, some aluminum oxide ceramics. So in general, it's quite cheap, but today these batteries are manufactured in a very complex way. So the material is cheap, but the manufacturing is complex, and also the shape of these batteries is quite complex, which is due to their original application as a traction battery in cars. And what we do at the moment is we try to have mass production ready technologies for manufacturing of these batteries. The main part of this battery is the so-called electrolyte, which is today manufactured in a very complex shaping process, and we try to do extrusion, which is a very fast technology where you can have large tubes in very rapid speed, and which would bring down the cost of this part by a factor of 10. So if you compare to what you pay for such an electrolyte today, with this extrusion technology, we can have only a tenth of the price for this component. And also we try to simplify the design of these batteries. So it's a twofold approach. We believe that not all the design features you need for a traction battery, for a car battery, are necessary for a low-cost, cheap, stationary battery. And that's also what we do.
And this, of course, is my next question. Many people think a battery's a battery, but when I look at how much it costs for me to buy a new battery for my camera, that's one thing. And then there are other batteries that are super inexpensive. There are batteries that work in some applications and don't work in other applications or perform in a different manner. So could you tell us what is the special feature of your battery from its potential usage? That is it a cold thing? Is it a hot thing? Is it a quick charge? Is it a slow charge?
So the battery we develop is a rather low speed battery. So the charge and discharge times are designed for about maybe 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours. So it's an ideal match to, for instance, renewable energies where you have fluctuating energy over the day, where you have, if the sun is shining, you have a solar system, you have during the day a lot of energy, but you want to use it in the evening. So if you have 1 or 2 daily cycles, then it's the ideal battery. It's probably not that good if you want to use it as an uninterruptible power supply. So it's not a high power battery, it's more a high energy battery. The energy density is quite high. It's as much as 130 kilowatt, 130 watt hours per kilo. So it's in the range of a lithium battery, but it's much, much cheaper.
So already there, energy density, people's ears go up. Energy density is an issue in one field. We already have interesting combinations. I'm always looking at our logo here, hydrogen fuel cells and batteries. There have been some wonderful marriages between these technologies in the past. To give you one example, the niche application of forklift trucks or delivery vehicles, batteries on their own are not necessarily optimal because they don't have the lifespan you need. You can't do an 8-hour day's work. But the mixture of a fuel cell that charges it up here, it's a PEM cell technology in a mobile application, proves to be a really ideal mix. It's also something you can operate indoor. You don't have the huge fleets of forklift trucks, one whole fleet being charged while the other's being used. Can you envision an optimal marriage between a fuel cell technology and these batteries?
You can match them with large fuel cells. This is a pretty good fit because even, and maybe especially in a large fuel cell and especially in the range of molten carbonate fuel cells and solid oxide fuel cells, you want to have the fuel cell system operate at one power level and one optimum temperature. You do not want to continuously thermally cycle or power cycle the fuel cell system. And that's what you can buffer with this battery. So if you have a rather dynamic load, and you have this load dynamics in a range of a few hours, maybe a few minutes during the day, then you can easily match such a battery with a fuel cell where you have fuel cell for the base load and the peak shifting and the peak management is done by the battery. On the other hand, especially if you look at this battery as a high temperature battery, which in fuel cell terms is not high, it's only 250 degrees, 300 degrees centigrade. But of course you can also thermally integrate these two systems. The fuel cell has a lot of excess energy and you can easily use this energy also to operate the battery in a thermal compound with the fuel cell. It's not necessary. You can also operate the battery on its own thermal management. It's possible, but if you have free thermal energy from the fuel cell, you can use this as well, obviously.
When we talk about any capacity to store electrical energy, we're right in the middle of the big debate about energy and the Energiewende, as it's called in German. Here in Germany, we all know that there is a massive resource of wind energy coming from the north, and there is a difference between supply and demand. It's unavoidable. We have solar things, but we're talking about potentially gigawatts. So everyone is looking for potential storage devices. We don't have enough water uphill to pump all that water uphill. So, and pumping hydrogen into the ground may also not be the optimal solution. Batteries, how far can you scale your battery systems? What sort of ranges are you talking about?
Well, especially in northern Germany, they are very interesting because we don't have enough hills. So we have the water, but we run out of hills. You can easily match a pack of these batteries or an installation of these batteries with a wind park. It's possible. It has been done by other countries as well. In Japan, there are similar installations where you have about 30 megawatt hours per installation with this type of battery, and we think this is somewhat of, like the upper limit. What you can do with this battery. So we are talking about building blocks of about 250 kilowatt hours per block, which is the size of maybe one container, 250 kilowatt hours roughly. And with multiple blocks, with multiple containers, you can buffer one wind park or one large-scale solar installation. And the good thing about battery technology, just like in fuel cells, it scales very much in size, very, very good. So if you have a battery cell, which is good, you can also pack them in smaller battery boxes. And we think there's a lot of applications also in the maybe 50 to 100 kilowatt hours range, where we're talking about smaller solar systems, yes, but also things like in-grid applications where you operate these batteries for the compensation of reactive power in power grids, in local grids, inside transformer stations, something like this. But also, if you want to purchase energy, if you are a small and medium-sized business and you purchase energy, you can optimize your purchasing behavior. So you can buy when it's cheap and use it when your battery is full. A lower limit is maybe 10 to 20 kilowatt hours, which would be the size of a home storage for personal homes, single-family homes. It doesn't make much sense to make them any smaller, because then the thermal insulation is too big as compared to the battery itself. So we are somewhere in the range between, say, 20 kilowatt hours, 10 to 20 kilowatt hours, up to 200 kilowatt hours. So this is the sweet spot.
I should mention that if there are questions from the audience, raise your hand and we can bring you a microphone. The interesting issue where I see the application is, of course, if you pair this up with things like a solid oxide fuel cell, they like to run at a constant level as well, but they're very effective. And of course, the real expense-saving aspect of solid oxide fuel cells is the electrical energy. We pay a lot for electricity here in Germany. And the issue behind that, again, is that where there's an excess of energy in the grid, you can buy it cheap. And that should be a law. But where the grid is in demand, it would be lovely to have your own production, a solid oxide fuel cell unit, that simply says, oh, you're too expensive now, I'll use up what I've got stored. And then, so does this system allow, I know there's some issues with some batteries, they don't like to be cycled on and off. How does that pan out for the cerenergy model?
So in general, if we are talking about minutes and hours, it works. You can use this battery to address exactly this topic. If we are talking about energy prices, then it comes down to the price and the lifetime of the battery. So this is closely correlated, and then you need a battery if you only want to play around with the energy price and optimize your purchasing behavior. You need a battery that is as cheap as possible. And we think this battery type, although it has some limits, although it has the limit of this slightly elevated operating temperature, and also it's not exactly fast, but this battery is by far the cheapest. It has by far the highest cost potential. The ingredients of 1 kilowatt hour for this type of battery is only about 120 euros. So we can even today address 300 euros per kilowatt hour in an installed system. So it might not be the most sexy battery in terms of multiple applications, but it's by far the cheapest. And for a stationary application, we believe this is the most important thing. It has a rather long lifetime. You can operate it. They have demonstrated 3,000 cycles, this type of battery. And we think this is what you need in a stationary application. It doesn't need to be very small or very lightweight like you would have in a car. It can sit there and do nothing, and you don't need to care about it. And that's what we aim for.
Okay, are there any issues that some batteries don't like to be completely discharged, don't like to be overcharged? Are there things...
They are not very complicated towards this. Of course, you need some battery management, but in general, the battery is very robust by design. They are not as dangerous as some other battery types if it comes to deep discharge or overcharge. And even if it's mechanically damaged, it's very safe. It's very safe. Even if the electrolyte breaks, it's very safe, much safer than many other batteries. So also the electrical and electronics effort you need to put in there is very, very low.
That was actually my next question. Before I ask that, though, if there's any questions from the audience, just raise your hand. The question of safety and even the question of how this looks in an installation. You know, some batteries or some reflections on how to use batteries. You know, we don't have enough space to house enough batteries to store gigawatts right now. Basically, I suppose the footprint, is that important for stationary applications, and certainly for stationary home applications, you got something hot. So is this an issue at all in terms of safety, or do you feel comfortable having this running in your garage?
Well, as a technician, I'd say it's not a problem, but we have to talk about this because people want to know, is it safe? And in general, what does an installation look like? So the battery cell itself is about the size of this glass, maybe a bit bigger. And the energy content is about 40 ampere hours. So pretty comparable to a common lead acid battery or a lithium battery. And typically you have, say, 20, 50 or 100 of these battery cells in one containment, and you have a thermal insulation around. Thermal insulation is something we as IKTS know very well from fuel cell technology. We know how to do this, and with a thermal insulation of about 60 millimeters, the battery will keep itself hot for 2 days or so. So it's not much of a problem, and you will have this kind of insulation around. You don't need any additional safety measures. The battery cell itself is encapsulated in metal, and that's all you need. And you don't need any active cooling, or you don't need any active heating. Only you need heating for startup. But then if it's continuously operated, you don't have to reheat it. And then this is all you need for the installation. And you don't need any electronics inside the battery pack like you have in a lithium battery, for instance. And because this battery is operated at 250 degrees, it doesn't matter whether it's 60 degrees or minus 20 degrees on the outside. So you don't even need a thermal management, an active cooling or active heating of the battery.
Well, I hope we've stored that message in one sentence. What was that, 1/10 of the cost?
1/10 for the electrolyte. We try what we can for the battery cost.
Okay, yeah, okay. I'm looking forward to a big future in this technology area. It's been a pleasure talking to you as always, Michael. Thank you for coming. I hope you'll come back next year with more reports on how this technology is being marketed.
So, thank you for having the chance to present here. And if you have questions, come over to our booth.
Of course.
Thank you very much.
The booth is C55 in this direction. Please join Michael there. He'll be happy to talk to you with more details.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Michael.